Have you ever looked at turn-based JRPGs with their swords and fantasy settings and thought, you know, I'd like a change of pace? Well then, I have a game to recommend to you. It's a JRPG with tanks and guns, and some fantasy elements, and turn-based combat. But it is different, I tell you. This game has one of the most unique gameplay systems in my gaming experience, and that's unique in a good way. In addition to a lovable cast of characters, a strong story, and beautiful art and music, it's probably no surprise I'd recommend the game to you. Without further ado, my name is Rio, and these are the completely biased reasons why you should play Valkyria Chronicles. Valkyria Chronicles is the first game in a series of tactical turn-based combat JRPGs set in a world with very apparent allusions to Europe during World War II. The game was developed by Sega and released in 2008 for the PS3 and found its way over to PCs in 2014. A remastered version was released on the PS4 in 2016. The game was well received and sold well, especially on PC, where current figures say it has sold over 500,000 copies. It even spawned several sequels. Hey Rio, if Valkyria Chronicles had sequels, why are you only talking about the first game? Here's why I'm only talking about the first game. Unfortunately for me and gamers like me, the second game was only released on PSP in the West, which I do not own, and the third game was never localized at all. And the fourth game only just released in Japan. Although the fourth one is coming to the West on a console I may end up getting in the Nintendo Switch, so I may get the chance to play another Valkyria Chronicles game soon enough. Valkyria Chronicles stands very well on its own though, starting with its excellent gameplay. Before we get to that though, it's best to start with the story. The main two characters of the game are Welkin Gunther, a university-educated aspiring teacher who is fascinated by everything in nature, and Alicia Melchiot, the head of the town watch in the town of Brule, whose main interest is in protecting everyone and baking bread. Their country, Gallia, is a neutral country in the Second European War between the Federation and the Empire. Unfortunately, the country is also a rich source of the resource Ragnite, which is used in tanks, weapons, electricity, and medical supplies, making it highly valuable. The Empire decides to invade Gallia and take it for themselves, and in response, Gallia enlists all young people into the militia. Welkin is placed in charge of one of the squads of the militia because of his university training, with Alicia as his right-hand woman. In the background of all this, because there weren't enough parallels to World War II, is the racism against the Darkson people. An ancient event called the Darkson Calamity, when the Valkyrie people disappeared, which was blamed on Darkson aggression, led to the Darkson people of today being treated like second-class citizens. These people are characterized by their dark hair, and it's personal for our hero Welkin because his adopted sister Isara is Darkson. You will see throughout the story many examples of Darkson racism from both Imperials and Gallians. The story is fairly straightforward, but it has some good emotional moments, humorous dialogue, memorable characters, a strong depiction of the ravages of war, and some unexpected twists. While I do think the gameplay is the best aspect of the game, the story isn't shirking its duty either. Valkyria Chronicles combat is a combination of third-person shooter and turn-based combat. Each turn you get command points that you expend to use your characters on the battlefield. You use 1 CP to move a regular character, and 2 to move a tank. Once you're into the battle as the character, you have a limited amount of area you can move to, determined by the AP, action points. Different units have different AP, weapons, and abilities, which should factor into your decisions on who to bring on each mission, since you have a limited deployment. The other thing CP can be used for are commands, which can do anything from calling in a bombardment strike to strengthening the defense of one specific character. Once you run out of CP, the enemy's turn begins, but you don't have to use all your CP on your turn. If you don't use it, all the CP carries over to your next turn. The objective for each chapter is, usually, to capture the enemy's base, but each map has its own challenges. Enemy tanks and soldiers, of course, but also mines, environmental problems, and barriers. Each character has a class in the game. Not including tanks, there are 5 classes: Scout, Shock Trooper, Lancer, Engineer, and Sniper. Scouts can travel the furthest and have good range and accuracy, but lower damage output. Shock Troopers are slower, with less range and accuracy, but have immense firepower, literally once you get the flamethrowers. Lancers are slow and have great defense, but their only true purpose is to take down tanks. Soldier-to-soldier combat is a no-go for them. Engineers are fragile, but can repair tanks, disable mines, and provide additional ammunition. Snipers are also fragile, and can't move that far, but have the best range and accuracy in the game. You need to be careful with your units though, because death is an aspect of Valkyria Chronicles. If a unit gets down to 0 health, another unit needs to get next to them to call a medic to pick them up. If they don't get there within 3 turns, or an enemy gets there first, that character is dead. Forever. Apart from if they're one of the essential plot characters, then they're just unavailable for the rest of the mission. Finally, you can use CP to call in reinforcements if you don't have the maximum units deployed. This can even include units who had to be extracted at other points in the battle. You must do this at a base, and there are usually several bases throughout the maps that are good defense spots, and also heal up your units at a greater rate than the natural health regeneration. Capturing enemy bases also prevents them from getting reinforcements, increasing your chances of victory. It's a decently simple battle system, with great maneuverability and tactics built in. The game requires a lot of thinking and strategizing, which is great fun for a player like me. Once victory has been achieved, you get a battle rank, which determines the amount of experience and money you get from combat, which you can then use to upgrade your characters. As with many of the JRPGs out there, your characters have personality though beyond being faceless, nameless soldiers. Those personalities come out in traits in battle, which can afford bonuses or penalties depending on the situation. Largo, the main Lancer on the team, has a trait called Big Heart, which can restore his health back up to nearly full if he gets low. The skills don't always trigger, but they're always there as part of their personality. Most of the non-main characters are not well fleshed out, but they can still be charming on the battlefield with the little details sprinkled into how they behave. You can also read up on their backstories in the book, as they call it, that you go to between battles. What happens, though, between battles? I'm glad you asked. It's time I introduced you to the book. The story progresses through a book, which is supposed to be an actual book written by Irene Kohler after the war ends. Each chapter you view scenes, mostly involving Squad 7 and the main characters, but also sometimes giving glimpses of what the enemy is up to. You progress until a battle happens, and once you defeat that, you continue on, but there are other menus to the book. Headquarters is an essential part of the out-of-battle action. At Headquarters, you manage your squad, picking your available pool of about 20 soldiers from a much larger group of characters. You can also manage specific equipment, if you want to give a soldier a special weapon picked up from an enemy. This menu is also where training happens. Training happens entirely by class, so if you lose a character, you don't need to worry because the next unit in that class has the same level and upgrades. Speaking of upgrades, the Research and Development Facility allows you to upgrade your guns, armor, and tank between battles using the money you got during battle. Castlefront Street is the news organization where you can get up-to-date information on the war and occasionally view side missions for a price. The War Cemetery has an old man, a veteran of the previous European War, who occasionally gives you the chance to get additional orders to use in battle. There is a final part of this menu, but it's a bit of a spoiler, so you'll have to play the game to find out for yourself. Headquarters is where most of the time out of the main book is spent, but you can also go and see personnel or weapons, which give more information and details about characters and weapons of the game. There's another menu that does this for general knowledge and events. There are a couple other menus, but some are spoilers and others music and statistics, don't show up until a second playthrough. Finally, there are some side missions, typically DLC, which comes along with the PC version and I believe the PS4 remastered version, that can be done as well. These give the chance to play as some of the less featured members of Squad 7, or even as one of the enemies. There's simply a lot to do both in and out of battle. I enjoy doing all of those things through my time playing with it. Yes, if you guessed from the segue, we're heading into my story. Valkyria Chronicles was the third game in my turn-based combat gaming revelation. Following Fire Emblem Awakening and XCOM Enemy Unknown, I was on the lookout for a unique game that still followed some of what I enjoyed in those games. It happened to be that Valkyria Chronicles showed up and was on sale, so I went for it. I got quickly engaged in the great strategy of it and found myself invested in the story as well. After one particularly upsetting battle, I only won that battle by the skin of my teeth, and then the upsetting aftermath. Why, Seigo? Why do you do this to me? I even had to take a break from the game for a couple days because I was distraught. I had such a positive experience from the game, and I'm really looking forward to playing the upcoming Valkyria Chronicles 4. Hope it's good. My closing thoughts are this. Valkyria Chronicles is an inventive game with a great combination of unique mechanics featured both in the combat parts of the game and the management parts. The strategy is excellent, leading to amazing gameplay that stretches the capabilities of any tactician. The story is solid, the music is incredible, the art is uniquely beautiful, and its frustrations are few. Those frustrations generally fall into, why is the tank going there? No, stop that. I wasn't telling you to turn. No, stop, please. Ugh. And all my AP is gone. Great. Other than that, though, Valkyria Chronicles is a great game. I give it a top recommendation for anyone interested in strategy games or JRPGs. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Rio. Thank you for continuing to listen to me ramble, and have a wonderful day.